Well, all right. Welcome everybody to another episode of Hot Seat Automotive Podcast. It's your buddy CJ here. And tonight we're talking about all things automotive industry, the car guy hobby, automotive enthusiast stuff. What's going on in the automotive industry? What's going on with new cars, new trucks, automotive events, motorsports, you name it. Welcome back to all my subscribers. You know this is the place to be for all that real gearhead talk. Real gearhead talk. Guys, if you're new to the channel, welcome. Automotive enthusiasts from across the globe and from all walks of life. If you're into it and it's got four wheels and an engine or some sort of motor, you in the right place. We have fun around here. We talk about all things related to the automotive enthusiast hobby and the industry. Guys, welcome, welcome, welcome. And if you're new, please give me a like and subscribe. And guys, keep those comments going. We're having a lot of really good discourse and discussion as part of the channel and on the gram. Hit me up on Hot Seat Gearheads. Let's get right into it. Tonight, we're talking about Ineos Grenadier. Guys, new automotive manufacturer based in London, England, manufacturing vehicles in France. We're going to get into all of this in a few minutes. An interesting story. One of the things I really want to challenge you guys with tonight, and it's something I'm thinking about, and I'm going to share my opinions. I want to hear from you, though, in the comments. Does the world want what Ineos Grenadier is offering? Is there demand in an already extremely crowded market? I'm not giving you a definitive answer right now. I am going to share my thoughts, but I want you guys to let me know what you think. Let's go ahead and get right into it. What are we talking about here, guys? And as you know, on Hot Seat Automotive Podcast, we look at these things together. And we talk about cars and trucks and all sorts of things. We have a lot of fun doing it. So let's take a look at this thing. The Ineos Grenadier. What we're talking about here, guys, is a full-size 5-passenger SUV. Okay? Just to give you some basic specs. This thing is considered to be and was conceived to be by Ineos the spiritual successor to the Land Rover Discovery, which went out of production in 2016. Okay, so even just as a truck guy or a car guy, you take a quick look at this thing. I know when I did, the first thing I thought of was Land Rover. How can you not? And in fact, they're not shy about it, and we'll get into the story in a minute. But make no mistake, this thing was heavily inspired by the Land Rover Discovery. And really, you can trace that lineage and the design cues and the architecture of this thing. Obviously, this is a much more high-tech and evolved version, if you will, of the Land Rover Discovery. But make no mistake, and let me get this out of the way right now, this is not a Jaguar Land Rover product. There is really no involvement from Jaguar Land Rover that I'm aware of, and we'll get to the story in a moment. But guys, this thing is going to be powered by a BMW 6-cylinder engine, okay, and a ZF automatic transmission. Only one powertrain available, okay? So we've got a vehicle manufactured in France, which, by the way, it's an old Daimler plant that they're using, which used to manufacture smart cars, I believe. And we'll talk a bit more about kind of how they built up this business and who's behind it. But leveraging existing infrastructure, if you will, to an extent with that plant, leveraging available platforms and partners. I think there's some wisdom that went into the business model here overall in terms of saying we're not going to come up with our own obscure power plant. No, they went with a proven power plant that's already in mass production, this inline 6 from BMW, as well as the transmission. So we're looking at a powertrain that they were able to put in this thing that at least has, some commercial viability. So there's that, and I think that's kind of interesting. If you look at this thing, between this model, the Grenadier, and the Quartermaster, which is the new pickup truck version of this, they're basically based on the same platform. Guys, we're looking at something with like somewhere around 10 inches of ground clearance, similar dimensions. For example, in terms of the pickup truck version, be very similar to like a Jeep Gladiator or a Chevy Colorado. Okay. Whereas the SUV version, obviously similar in dimensions to something like, whether it's a Land Rover Discovery or if you look like a Mercedes G-Wagon, you're getting the idea, right? G-Class Mercedes versus this thing's going to be at a lower price point. They're selling these starting point for the SUV version somewhere around $73K. And the starting point for the Quartermaster pickup is at about $86,000. And we'll talk about some of the pricing dynamics there in a moment. But this is, make no mistake, this is a premium product. So what Ineos has done is price this thing at a higher price point than like a Jeep Wrangler Unlimited or a Ford Bronco, but at a lower price point than like a G-Class, like a G-Wagon Mercedes, which I think is kind of interesting, right? Guys, let's keep going. Let's take a look at some other views of the Grenadier. Another interesting thing, and, I kind of got a kick out of this as I was looking into this. And guys, leave me those comments. Let me know what you think about this thing. They actually refer to the Grenadier SUV as a station wagon, okay, which kind of harkens back again, sort of a, it's a legacy term, particularly here in North America. We think of station wagons. We think of the old family trucksters, the family cruisers who grew up in the back of station wagons, driving around with mom and dad. But in all seriousness, this thing is clearly a full-size, adventure-oriented, utility-oriented SUV, tracing its lineage and its roots, if you will, its inspiration back to that Land Rover Discovery. Okay, here's the side profile view. If you're into that, I can see how this would, at a minimum, capture the eye and potentially the enthusiasm of the Land Rover Discovery market. Dare I say, conceptually, you think about this vehicle as an idea, right? The idea that the Land Rover Discovery, however many decades that thing was made, clearly has a following. And the older ones are in great demand and have become somewhat of collector's items. And truck guys and off-road enthusiasts globally will spend a premium for those Land Rover Discoveries, just like they'll spend a premium for the old Ford Broncos, right? Now having said that, what's the old saying in business? Your buddy CJ learned this years ago. Not every good idea leads to success, right? So conceptually, I think as truck guys and as car guys, we get excited about these things. Listen, I don't know that I would ever buy an Ineos Grenadier product. I definitely want to check them out and maybe drive one and check one out in the near future. I'm intrigued by it. Having said that, will there be a market for this thing? Beyond it just being a really cool, neat idea as an off-road enthusiast or as a truck guy or as a car guy, the gee whiz factor may be on high, but is that enough to get guys and gals like you and I, real enthusiasts, real car guys, real truck guys, is that enough to attract us to actually sign on the dotted line and pull the trigger and buy one of these? I want to talk more about that. I want to hear your comments. Let's take a couple more looks at this thing together because I really want to get a good feel here together for what this thing looks like, what its dimensions are. Guys, here's a shot of the Ineos Grenadier SUV. They started manufacturing these in 2023. This is a new entrant, a startup automotive manufacturer making these SUVs. And again, from this view, it is crystal clear that the Ineos Grenadier can trace its lineage and its inspiration directly to the legendary Land Rover Discovery, which has been out of production since 2016 or so. Now, there was a huge market for the Land Rover Discovery at one time. The question is there a market for this vehicle today? And I think that's a fascinating and intriguing question to ask. It's my understanding that they've taken somewhere in the order of 7,500 orders for these. since launch, okay? And deliveries are commencing now. I mean, these things have landed in the US. I can't tell you exactly how many. And they've now launched the second vehicle in addition to the Grenadier SUV. Let's take a look at the pickup truck version, which is based on the same platform, but in pickup truck format. So here it is, guys. Here is the Ineos Automotive Quartermaster pickup truck. This is leveraging the same platform and underpinnings as the Ineos Grenadier SUV. This vehicle is also powered by that 3.0 liter BMW straight six engine. It's going to have a ZF 8-speed automatic transmission. There's only one powertrain available on these. Okay. Options and packages abound. I believe there's 3 different trim levels and a lot of what they're calling sort of bolt-on or customized accessories that you can also get for your Grenadier or your Quartermaster pickup. These things, as I mentioned, are going to have about 10 inches of ground clearance, similar dimensions, again, as I mentioned, to like a Jeep Gladiator or a Chevy Colorado. The towing capacity is somewhere in the order of 7,700 pounds, whether you go with the Quartermaster pickup truck version or the Grenadier SUV version. So they certainly look like they're going to be capable vehicles. One of the interesting things about the Quartermaster pickup truck pictured here, guys, is that in order to sell this in the United States, there are tariffs that have to be paid. Specifically, what's known commonly as the chicken tax here in the US. And I'm not going to go into all the detail, but basically for a pickup truck like this, based on its class, manufacturers have to pay a tariff. And that's in the regulation, and there's really no way around that right now. Who knows if that'll get repealed? I think there's also been discussion, and I don't know, it's probably still early days, but I think there's been discussion with Ineos Automotive considering possibly, figuring out a way to assemble these in the United States so that they can avoid that, potentially come in at a lower price point. But it's a consideration, right? Not an inexpensive vehicle. This is a premium vehicle. I mean, you're talking about a starting point price for the Quartermaster version, the pickup truck version, about $87,000. So this is a premium vehicle. You're paying for all of that, for all of that retro styling, for being a premium vehicle, for being this capable, off-roader, so on and so forth. You're not going out and buying a Chevy Silverado here or a Jeep Gladiator. That's not really the target market, because while you can get higher end trim packages, whether you're talking about like a Gladiator Rubicon or, a fully goosed out Chevy Silverado with all the trimmings, you could spend a lot. You could be north of 80K. You could be north of 90K for some of these domestic pickup trucks, right? Having said that, your starting point is nearly $90,000, before you start adding in options. So this is a high-end product, and it's also a crowded market. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see how all this plays out. But I want to give you guys some of the additional backstory, which I think makes this kind of a fascinating story in many ways. So now that I've given you some of the specs, let's look at the man behind the vehicle. Look at this guy. This is Mr. Jim Ratcliffe, who is a incredibly successful business executive, and his global company, Ineos, is a petrochemical company that has various diversified businesses. As I mentioned, this is somewhere on the order of a $65 billion global company, okay? Obviously, Mr. Ratcliffe, as the founder, the CEO, and the chairman, has been wildly successful. And it's actually he's kind of an interesting dude. I don't claim to know, his full biography, but I know enough to know that he's had a storied career in business, in addition to being a bit of a sports enthusiast. And for the gearheads and the automotive motorsports enthusiasts out there, Ineos is certainly involved in F1, I believe, with the Mercedes F1 racing team. He's done a lot of really interesting things with football or soccer, as the Yanks call it here in the U.S. But again, a very successful British executive, head of a very large British conglomerate. So, what I want to tell you is this is not your average startup. Like this guy, this organization, this entity, they have the means to write the checks to get this done. And when you think about it, right, it's actually kind of a fascinating thing. To be an automotive startup in 2020, since I guess they started this journey going back to 2016, 17, 18, 19, 20, so on and so forth. Listen, building a manufacturing infrastructure, getting a design together, marketing, sales, global compliance, distribution in the United States and beyond globally. Tremendous business undertaking to get something like this off the ground from concept to reality. Bringing something like that to fruition is a massive undertaking, requires tremendous resources, talent, okay, and a network. And obviously, this man and his organization behind Ineos Automotive has contributed to get them where they're at, where this thing has been manifested. This thing exists. You can go out to, I think there's 18 dealerships today in the US. You can go out and buy your Ineos Grenadier today. Like this vehicle didn't exist a few years ago. It's really interesting, right? Kind of an interesting story. Check this out, guys. I mentioned that Ineos was not at all shy about talking about their heritage and their lineage to the Land Rover Discovery. There's more to the story, though. Did you know that Mr. Jim Ratcliffe, when Jaguar Land Rover, great British history and heritage there, right? This guy's a Brit. When they were shutting down production of the Land Rover Discovery, it's legendary that this man went and tried to buy the rights, the tooling, the brand, everything. He wanted to keep making the Land Rover Discovery with all of his means and his business enterprise behind it. And his attempts to buy Land Rover Discovery from Jaguar Land Rover were thwarted or were rejected. Now, I don't know all the details, but that's the lore of how all this started. Mr. Ratcliffe said, okay, if you won't sell me the rights to the existing legacy and the tooling and everything that goes along with the Land Rover Discovery, he got his team together and said, let's build a better version of what was the Land Rover Discovery. How cool is that, right? This guy with his means and his resource and his enthusiasm, listen, he did it, right? He assembled a team, got a design together. He from my perspective, at a high level, made some thoughtful, what I'll call prudent business decisions using existing platforms and technology, partnering, whether it's with BMW or transmission, drivetrain manufacturers, so on and so forth. He didn't completely go off into left field and start from ground zero, is my point, and build something that just was completely new, wing to wing, so to speak, every nut and bolt. No, I think that he used some smart supply chain sourcing concepts and principles that have led to this thing coming to fruition. Guys, let's keep going here, because now that I've given you a bit about the vehicles themselves, particularly the Grenadier SUV, starting right at around $73,000, and the Quartermaster pickup truck version coming in at about $87,000. I also gave you a little bit of information about the storied history of Ineos as the global $65 billion company. Mr. Jim Ratcliffe as chairman, CEO, and founder of Ineos. He's behind this. And is this a pet project for him? Not sure. If you think about their business goals, what I want to tell you is, guys, they want to sell eventually about 30,000 Quartermasters and Grenadiers every year. They've already got, I think, whatever, the current numbers are that have been released, somewhere in the order of 7,500 for their first year of production. Couple things to put that into context, right? Did you know that on average, Ford makes about 200,000 Explorers every year. Now that number, has been going down a bit. Why? Because there's more saturation, more competitors who want a piece of that SUV action in North America and beyond. We are in the land of SUVs. We are in the land of pickup trucks, okay? And every manufacturer and every business leader is interested in getting a piece of that revenue action. By way of another reference point, Mercedes-Benz G-Wagons, it varies, but they've done, an average 8,000, 10,000 per year units. Ford Bronco, did you know Ford's been selling, I think, around 100,000 Broncos since it's come out per year? There's an interesting reference point. I'm just giving you some general ballpark numbers here, guys. You know that's what we do on this channel. We talk about things. Jeep Wrangler. Jeep Wrangler moves 180, 190, 200,000 units per year. Again, one of the interesting things about most of these big marquee off-road adventure SUV themed vehicles, okay, is that while demand has grown over the years and the decades, I mentioned we're in the land of SUVs, the pie is getting sliced. New entrants into the market. Okay. Why do you think Ford brought the Bronco back in a form that really directly goes head to head with the Jeep Wrangler Unlimited to get a piece of the action to compete in that market? Okay. My question for you, when you think about the Jeep products out there, with all of the loyalty to the Jeep brand, it's not just about the vehicle. It's not just, well, this is a capable SUV, and here's another capable SUV. I think I'll buy that one instead of this one. Jeep people are extremely loyal to the Jeep brand, and they are not truck people. They are not really automotive enthusiasts. They are Jeep enthusiasts. And I'm giving you an example, my perspective, on just some of the headwinds and challenges that I think Ineos Automotive is going to face. Now, a reaction to that might be, well, CJ, your average Jeep, Wrangler Unlimited, or Gladiator buyer is probably not in the market at the price points for a Grenadier or a Quartermaster from Ineos. Well, that may or may not be true. And I think it probably is true for a good portion of the Jeep buyer. But it's not that far off. It's not like a quantum leap to a Lamborghini Urus. We're not talking about, completely different scale and price point. We're talking about higher end, premium, but not that far off. Okay? Ford Explorer, Ford Bronco, same thing. Listen, your average Ford Explorer buyer is probably not going to run out and buy a Grenadier. But when you look at the price for a goosed out, tricked out Ford Explorer with all the trimmings and options, and you say, well, maybe I'll step up to an Expedition. Or maybe I'll look at the Chevy Suburban fully loaded. Or maybe I'll look at a BMW X5. Suddenly, as you start kind of shopping around and looking at going above and beyond, the Grenadier might be an option for you, starting at about $73K. Mercedes-Benz. I mentioned the G-Wagon, the G-Class, right? If you're in the market for a vehicle at that price point, you might consider a Grenadier, but there's headwinds. Guys, there's tremendous headwinds. Off-road enthusiast, motorsports enthusiast, car guys, truck guys, we are generally loyal to brand, and we can be downright finicky and extremely temperamental. Like, it's going to be interesting to watch the reaction. My question, among others, but one of the questions I'm putting to you, and I want to hear your opinion, what will be the reaction of legit Land Rover Discovery enthusiasts and loyalists from years and years ago up to present day? How are they going to react to the Ineos Grenadier? Are they going to just sell their prized, legacy Land Rovers or just kind of give up on it and say, wow, Mr. Ratcliffe and Ineos, they built something really innovative, cool, and it's better. Some of them might, or they may want to add as a daily their Ineos Grenadier or Quartermaster in addition to their beloved old school Land Rover. They might not. There's precedent for this across the automotive industry. I said it earlier, and it applies to general business. Not every good idea is going to manifest itself into success and profit, revenue growth. Will they get the market share? I don't know. Here's the deal. Bottom line, this is an extremely crowded market. It has been for the past 15, 20 years, and it's only getting more saturated, okay? There are countless premium SUV options. No, they don't all look like a Land Rover Discovery, but newsflash, got a question for you. If there was such demand for a vehicle like the Land Rover Discovery, why'd they go out of production? If Jaguar Land Rover could have kept selling the Land Rover Discovery globally, turning a profit, profitable growth, revenue, all of these things, don't you think they'd be doing it? Can Ineos pick up the mantle, run with it, and do it in a manner that contributes to profitable growth for Ineos overall? Does Mr. Ratcliffe and leadership over at Ineos really care? And when I say that, I'm not being snarky. I'm being sincere. Like, is this a bit of a pet project? Does it show the innovation, the diversity of the organization, and they're willing to take a hit? They're willing to take a hit for year 1, year 3, year 5. Will they ever get to 30,000 vehicles? Will they get to 10,000 per year? Will they get to 20,000? Listen, upside, maybe they'll get to 50,000 per year. Okay? I just mentioned, whether it's Ford Explorer, the Jeep Wrangler Unlimited, manufacturers are selling fewer, right, per year. The pie is getting sliced up. It's harder to make a buck in this industry for 100 reasons. Emissions requirements, the shift towards EV, which, by the way, Ineos Automotive, they do have an EV coming. They also have alternative fuels that they're considering. I am not a naysayer. Ineos Automotive, Ineos as this massive petrochemical company, Mr. Ratcliffe, chairman, CEO. It's an incredible story. I enjoy hearing stories like this. It's not just the same old players, right? It's a new entrant into the automotive manufacturing realm. Having said that, has history been kind to startup automotive companies? No. Now, there's Tesla, which has been the major disruptor over the past, go back to 2012 to today. It's just an incredible story with Tesla, right? If you just watch the timeline and the growth. But I don't think, I'll be real with you, real talk, I don't think Ineos Automotive is going to be anything near that scale, nor are they attempting to get there, right? They've got fairly modest goals, but honestly, I don't know if they're going to be able to shift 30,000 of these Grenadiers and Quartermasters per year. Are these things going to be sitting on the lot? My prediction is it's going to be a hard path for Ineos Automotive. Listen, Alfa Romeo came back into this market, okay? And I remember I owned one. I had a Giulia. And I remember the dealer telling me back in 2016, CJ, the BMW buyers are going to be flocking to buy these quadrifolios. All the M3 guys are going to come get the Giulia. A couple of them did. Did M3 and M4 owners in mass run out to trade in their BMWs? with all that brand loyalty to BMW, did they decide, hey, there's this Alfa Romeo and it's faster around the Nürburgring and it's got the cool triangle grille? Let's give up on our favorite brand in the world, BMW, and let's go buy an Alfa Romeo. No, it didn't happen. The Fiat 124, the Abarth, I claim is a cooler vehicle than any Miata ever. I said it. Unpopular opinion. It's gone. Fiat 124, gone. We're Miata people, and I know it leverages the Mazda Miata platform. I got a whole episode on that. But cool stuff. Check out my other episode. Guys, in all seriousness, Mazda Miata people, they're going to buy their Mazda Miatas. They're not really interested in the Fiat 124. You know, they shifted some of them, but it was not a wild success. And, you know, a different use case, all right? But there's lessons to be learned. You're not just going to, lure away all that brand loyalty for off-road truck enthusiasts from their beloved Fords and their Chevys and their Jeeps and their G-classes, okay, and their BMWs, and fill in the blank. Okay, brand loyalty is a big deal for the type of people who would buy a Grenadier or a Quartermaster, even if it picks up on those styling cues and the heritage and reminds us of the Land Rover. And you can't buy the new Land Rover Discovery. You can't. So maybe at a high level, you say, if you like a Land Rover Discovery and your 2016 or 2015 Discovery is getting old and long in the tooth, then, you know, let's go ahead and let's all run out and buy our Ineos Automotive Grenadiers and our Quartermasters. Is that going to happen at scale in the U.S. and beyond? If I were a betting man, what's your buddy CJ's prediction? Probably not. I do not think this will be a wild success. I think year one, year two, they're going to shift some units, but I think it's going to level off at best and probably start to dwindle and curtail. I don't think this is going to be a wild success story. And again, I'm not trying to be that guy to pick on Ineos Automotive, the upstart. But having said that, they've got tremendous intellectual and business horsepower and resources behind them with Mr. Ratcliffe and the wildly successful Ineos Petrochemical Company, $65 billion company, right? So we don't feel bad for them. We respect them for what they're doing. I know I do. But as a guy who's, you know, out here on the front lines, if you will, as a car guy and as an automotive enthusiast, and I'm always in the market for vehicles because that's what we do as car guys and truck guys. Come on, we always looking. Listen, I think it's going to be tough for Ineos to make a dent, okay? I think it's kind of cool and interesting. I'm excited to check out a Grenadier or a Quartermaster truck. But guys, those are kind of some of my thoughts. I think it's going to be tough yards, tough go of it. We'll see what happens. I applaud Ineos Automotive, Mr. Ratcliffe, for all that they're doing, building the dealership network, all the logistics, the manufacturing, the partnerships, you know, distribution, sales, compliance. You know, it's just unbelievable what these guys did in the amount of time they did it. What's the outcome going to be? Might be a short story, my humble opinion. I want to know what you guys think. Leave me those comments. You know your buddy CJ loves you. Guys that come on here on the podcast, love talking about this stuff with you. Let me know what you think about Ineos Automotive. Let me know what you think about the Grenadier. Let me know what you think about the Quartermaster. Do you have one of these? Hit me up if you have one. I want to hear from you. Leave me those comments. Give me a like and subscribe. Guys, until I see you on the next one, peace.